Um, so we're just gonna dive right into it.
Okay.
I have been massively discouraged lately. So you and I have said that we would do this if nobody was listening,
Yeah.
right? And I agree with that. I think what's difficult is there's a difference between talking to a wall or the void and smacking your head against the wall. And I'm hoping things will be different, and if they're not, it's fine. I think more than anything, it's just I am discouraged by the fandom that we belong to and that we talk about. Not that we talk about, sorry, the fandom that we belong to and the people that we talk to. So what that is like you spend your time on Reddit. I don't know how. Like it baffles me how you can do this, because ever since more and more show stuff has been coming out, you hear like the number one comment on every single like picture that was released by Amazon, which were amazing pictures, by the way.
Yeah.
Like them releasing those 23 photos for the Rings of Power show. Amazing. I love every one of them. And you and I will talk about some of those things. But like the number one comment is, don't screw this up. And one, my question is like, or not my question. As soon as I see that, like that's inflammatory.
Yeah.
Right? They're not trying to say anything other than I want to make people angry and I want to cause a stir.
Yeah.
Right? That's all that is.
Well, it's
Because they don't care whether or not it messes up. I'll go and I'll look at the profile and the profile doesn't exist. It's not a real person. Right? But it frustrates me because the people who are real are the 29 people that comment underneath that.
Yeah.
And those people are the ones that are commenting like, oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, and they've done this and they've done that, and they've already announced that there's this and this and this, right? And it's just like, if my biggest question, I guess, and like what I really wanted to talk to you about on it is,
should we switch to a different fandom?
no, I'm actually asking you, like, is it hard for you?
No.
I mean, being Mexican, is it hard for you to see like all of, I mean, we're just being candid here, right? I mean, like I'm being real in the idea that like seeing, and what I mean by that is so everybody knows I'm not beating around the bush. There are just a lot of racist comments.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
More than like way more than I would ever want to see. And so because of that, like, I just wonder on your end, like, is that discouraging to you at all? No?
I'll watch it. I'll enjoy it.
I mean, with the fandom in general.
Well, I don't care. I honestly don't care about the fandom.
Okay.
Like, I don't care about the people.
Okay.
So all right. Anyone who's listening, I don't care about you. I mean, I do and I don't. Like, I don't I don't take it personal. Like, it's not, if they want to be miserable about this fantastic thing that's about to happen, then be miserable about this fantastic thing that's about to happen. It's the same with The Hobbit, right? People fucking hate The Hobbit.
Right.
We enjoy it.
Right.
And I have my views on it, right? About, you know, what
the storytelling.
The storytelling aspect of The Hobbit that makes it even better for me.
Right.
And it's probably not what was originally intended, but like, I don't let it discourage me. Like, I see memes all the time about like The Hobbit. I saw actually a good one on Reddit,
Oh yeah.
And it was like me watching, or it was me watching The Hobbit in theaters, and then me 7 years later, and it was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I hate you, right? And then the next one was like, I didn't I didn't know how much I appreciated you. And it's true. It's just like
Yeah.
it takes a while for something to. The problem is that the original trilogy usually is how it goes, right? When
Hmm.
it's the original of something,
Right.
is that it's so much better, and there's so much nostalgia
Right.
built into it, right? With The Hobbit, it was seen as a cash grab after the fact, right?
Right.
And like the same thing with this, because of who's involved.
Right.
Jeff fucking Bezos, who's about to have Denmark tear down a fucking bridge, a historic bridge, so that he can pass his stupid fucking yacht through.
Oh, serious?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, there's
God.
about 1,000 people in Denmark who are ready to throw rotten food at Jeff Bezos and his yacht if that is to happen.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I get, and then on top of that, some of the same people who are into the Lord of the Rings also are into like Game of Thrones and other fantasy stuff like that, right? And so
Hmm.
they see season 8 of Game of Thrones,
Right.
and they don't realize what was behind season 8 of Game of Thrones, right?
Right.
And they just see the garbage that came from season 8 Game of Thrones,
Right.
not putting not realizing that the showrunners were already committed to uh the Star Wars trilogy, and that their heads were already there, so
Right.
they were checked out of Game of Thrones, which is why they didn't split it into 2 seasons, which is what they should have done,
Right.
right? And they didn't want to do it anymore because they were going on to Star Wars, and it's like, finish your fucking, and then they lost Star Wars.
Yeah.
So finish, so it's finish your fucking job, and then people, if that hadn't have failed as massively as it did, right? I don't think people would be as upset.
Okay.
And then Wheel of Time, which is our kind of first look into what
Amazon fantasy.
yeah, what Amazon could produce for us,
Right.
um, which isn't true, right?
Right.
Is for a lot of people, they were like, well, it's not true to the books. I thought it
Yeah.
was a fucking good series. I don't know the books.
That's the thing,
As
right? Is
someone who
I
doesn't
don't know it either.
as someone who
So
doesn't know the books, like, didn't really affect me. I enjoyed it. I watched it. I'll watch the next season,
yeah.
right?
Well, and I think that's something
I may read the books because of it,
that's something
right?
that's a little bit exciting about the series coming out, like the Lord of the Rings series coming out, is there is a group of people that, got introduced with the Lord of the Rings 20 years ago with the movies coming out, but there's a lot of young people that haven't been, right? And so there's a whole new generation of people that are being able to be introduced to a new fandom um via the TV show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyway, keep going on the question that I asked you. I know you already said no, but you're kind of giving an explanation here.
Yeah. And so, you know, ultimately it doesn't really bother me. Like, I don't like, I see the comments in some of the Reddit threads, and I just kind of ignore it and be like, you guys don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And we know, and the thing with with Lord of the Rings is we know what the story is.
Right.
We don't know like the things in the middle, which is what they're going to kind of fill in, and which they have, the leeway to do,
Mm-hmm.
and the artistic license to do.
Right.
But there is an ending. Everyone knows what that ending is, right?
Right.
Everyone knows how the second age ends.
Right.
That's not a shocker, right? It's like the Titanic movie.
Well, that's the thing though, is yes, okay, you're right. Everybody knows how the second age ends. There are things that leading up to it that there are a lot of people, even the fandom that we belong to, don't know, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think people are. It's also part of the climate politically, right? Socially
Yeah.
and politically, right?
Right.
And it's everyone's just kind of divided, and everyone's just like, well, you can't have black elves, like.
Says who?
So yeah,
Because
exactly.
Tolkien didn't say so.
Yeah, I mean, Tolkien was not a. I mean, Tolkien wasn't a racist.
Right.
Tolkien wasn't a racist. Tolkien wasn't a Nazi. Like
Right.
he got an award from the Nazis, or he was or something. And
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a letter, right, where he writes back and just completely murders them
right. And so
in the
that's
letter,
that's
just
something that
going
you've
like, I don't think I don't think that word means what you think it means.
right. And we've talked a little bit about that. And one
Yep.
of the other things that we talked about too was this idea, and this is what I see in the fandom a lot. And like this is why it kind of discourages me, is Tolkien also wrote this giant letter to the Nazis talking about their misuse of Norse mythology, terminology, and even like runes,
Yeah.
right? And how they completely misused and misrepresented it. And like that's how I feel about people in this fandom, is the amount of misuse and misrepresentation that people are giving to something that they don't understand, right? So and what I mean by that is, this is kind of where I'm going with this whole thing. And this is what I want people. Carlos and I are frank when we do these, much more frank than much more frank and
Frank is my brother. I just want to
and expletive. What would I say there?
We're a
We
lot
use
more
many
obscene.
expletives.
We're a lot
Yes,
more obscene.
there you go. We are much more than many other podcasts, YouTube channels, all of that stuff about this legendarium. We're a little bit more frank, and we are a little bit more, obscene about it. But what that means is, well, but what I want to say is that Tolkien is dense, right? Like the Tolkien legendarium is very, very dense. There are not just those 3 movies that came out 20 years ago. There aren't just 3 books that those are based on. There's not just also The Hobbit and those movies that those things are based on. There's also 12 history of Middle Earth books. There's also the Silmarillion. There's 13 history of Middle Earth now, because the People of Middle Earth just came out this year. Or the Nature of Middle Earth, that's what it's called. So there's that. There's also all of the solo stories of Beren and Luthien, Fall of Gondolin, Children of Hurin. The Tolkien legendarium is deep and dense, right? So with how much we are very frank about calling people assholes and saying things like this never fucking happened or this doesn't exist, blah, 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 blah. Really what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the amount of knowledge that we have and that we try to dig into and study and give that to everybody that listens, give that to you, very digestible and fun, right? Because it's not easy to know all of these things. But there are things that I like to put out there. So Carlos and I talked about last time, and this is going to come out. This is actually going to come out today, probably, because that's just the mood that I'm in. But
the quickest turnaround. That's not going on Patreon.
Yeah, right. So we've talked about before doing an entire thing on the races of Middle Earth, right? And what that means, and what in reality race means, right? And Tolkien, more than anybody in his like fantasy works, used it in the way that the word was first presented. What I mean by that, and Ariel and I have talked about this because she's taken classes and a bunch of other stuff about it, is this idea that when the idea of race was first presented, it was presented by old white scientists, and they presented it as the idea of human subspecies. And they did that on purpose, because scientifically subspecies cannot breed. And so they presented it that way on purpose, right? To create this idea that humans are separate. And this whole thing, right? Whereas Tolkien actually presents it in his Legendarium a little bit more. Now we know it's not quite to the point of subspecies because elves and men do breed, right? So
men and orcs,
right. And so like there is breeding that's happening there, but it is a little bit more realistic in that he creates like dwarves are a race, elves are a race, men are a race. And we've talked about that now orcs are also a race, right? In and of themselves. But like that's the thing is it's like he presents it more real and true to what it is, where it's not a separation of where you're from or your color or culture.
Yeah.
It is a representation of basically your where you fall in the world. Right, where elves are tied to the
what
world.
Is your scientific family, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What's your what family grouping do you fall into?
Right, and his is more of a fantastical type one, right? Where the race of elves are tied to Arda, the race of men are not.
Yeah.
The race of dwarves were an accident, and and so were the race of orcs. Really,
they're redheaded,
right?
Sorry to all my redheads. That was bad.
But it comes down to more of like what is your I don't want to say birthright because that's not right, more your death right. like what happens to you when you die, right? That kind of solidifies your race.
Right. What's your ultimate destiny?
Right. There you go. I like that. That was good. And so we even see that with descriptions, right? We are given many descriptions about eye color and hair color. And that's pretty much it.
Yep.
We talked about it in the last podcast. We have one that I know of. You can try and correct me. I've had people, like I've asked people to. Sources wise, though, we have one time where it describes skin color. And we just talked about that in our last history episode.
Which isn't coming out for like 2 years.
Right. But we talked about it where he describes the Sallow and Swarthy. Yeah. Skin. And that's it. That's the only time we hear that. Right. We don't hear skin color of anything else.
Yeah.
And so you and I have made discussions on because there are so many gaps and so many holes given, because like you said, the Silmarillion, we've got a million other things as well, but the Silmarillion, which is where we get a lot of our history from, is told by elves. So elves aren't going to waste their boring ass time telling us whether or not the lineage of Boar ended up marrying the lineage of any of the Adain, right? Like they're just not going to tell us that because they don't care. Like they don't care that much. And so we don't know.
They care about the houses of the Adain.
Right. But like the men that have become like the Rohirrim over time.
Yeah.
They don't care.
No. Honestly, all this was written just so that Tolkien could come up with a language. He had a language that he wanted, and he's like, this needs a history.
Right.
And so he wrote a fucking history for it.
Yeah, and so that's the other thing, right? Is one of the other comments that I see
also, it's not real.
Right.
Fantasy.
And that's the
fantasy
thing.
Can be anything, the biggest, I guess the biggest like joke that you always get with like Star Wars and stuff like that is there's like 2 black guys in the entire galaxy, right? It's Lando and it's Poe.
Right.
Or is it Poe?
Yeah, Poe. No, Poe is Oscar Isaac, right?
Oh yeah, it's the other guy.
Yeah. I don't know his
I
name.
don't remember.
I don't know those movies well enough.
I should know those movies, but I don't. I've only watched the new ones only a handful of times.
And
Anyways,
I only know the pose Oscar Isaac because Oscar Isaac is a gorgeous man.
yeah. And so yeah, so there's that joke, right? And it's the same kind of people should joke about the Lord of the Rings, the movies not having
Right.
kind of there's no one really.
No, like completely whitewashed, except for the bad guys.
Yeah, except for the bad guys.
Right. So and part of that, like part of his vision on that, Peter Jackson's vision was correct. Now the bad part of that is that he showed them only as the bad guys.
Yeah.
Right. Because we do know that like the Haladin, yeah, we do know that the Haladin like came from the south, right? It was this whole thing. Like they are part of the later Easterlings.
Yeah.
If
you have the books and you enjoy the books and the show's not great, then don't fucking watch the show.
Right. And don't project what you picture in the book simply because that's what is in your mind, not because of descriptions that are given to you, but simply because that's what is in your mind to the rest of the artistic world.
Yeah.
Like you don't get to do that.
You mean to tell me that Sam Gamgee isn't a Mexican? Right? The dude's a fucking gardener.
Right.
I can picture Sam as a Mexican if
I
right?
Yeah.
Gardener hero.
Gardener
hero Sam. Samuel Gamgee.
I mean, also we already have Smigel.
Yeah, we have
as well.
Smigel.
So, God, he's terrifying. Look at that guy.
That is creepy.
But all of this is to say, and I kind of want to keep going in it, but it's this idea that like I've been discouraged and I kind of wanted to see where you were at with this. And like it's also like to all of you who are watching or listening, like I'm happy that you are here because that means we don't hide the way that we feel about these things. And so it means that you're at least okay with the opinions that we give, like enough that you're like, I'll tolerate them just to listen to the history.
Especially to the people who pay to listen to us, right? Like,
right.
What the hell is wrong with you guys?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't care. Like I have so much other shit going on in my life, like where I live, that someone's stupid ass comment about the Lord of the Rings isn't going to affect my opinion of the show ultimately, right?
Yeah.
I was on YouTube this morning and there's like people like, like breakdown of the teaser posters. The fuck is there to break down?
Yeah, right.
They're fucking amazing.
Yeah, they're great.
Someone confused the Warhammer with the fucking anvil, and I corrected them on Reddit.
Yeah, because he has a beard.
And they were totally cool about it. The post that I saw that people posted, like the posters, was perfectly fine. Like,
yeah,
people seemed excited about it.
That's good.
And then I start seeing other posts about like, oh, this is like, I think they were jokes, but like whatever. I don't comment on those. Like,
right.
The Tolkien fans Reddit thread is a really good one. Like they talk about the book. Like they don't really cover like the show.
Yeah.
Like the LOTR memes. Oh, also there was a discussion. How do you pronounce it? LOTR or LOTR?
Oh, I say LOTR.
Yeah, I say LOTR.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, anything on the web, right?
Yeah.
Anything on the internet, you're gonna have just destructive people, right? And there are good parts about it, right? So it's like I'm on a bunch of weird fucking, like, I'm on insane parents Facebook Reddit thread, right? I'm on idiots in cars Reddit thread. I'm also on humans being bros, right? Because it's nice to see people being like good,
right? Right.
And be reminded that like the internet just isn't just full of crap.
Yeah.
Right? There's some
Well,
good stuff, which is why the Tolkien fan one is, if you're gonna be on Reddit, do that one, because that's a good one.
so I guess that's the other part that's like, and again, I guess it shouldn't be because you and I have talked about this, but like the other part that's a little bit frustrating is that I will watch, or these things will come up where it's like a link to a YouTube page, right? And it's this guy that's like talking about how how the show is just gonna, like, Amazon is gonna ruin everything, right? And it's like, the thing that's hard about that is that this guy's got like hundreds of thousands of views.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, is this what people in this fandom like?
Who is it?
Like,
call him out.
Just an asshole saying, like, talking about things that he doesn't know. Like, that's just, I don't know.
So, so you're discouraged that this guy's got like 100,000 views on his bullshit,
and we've got like 10.
and we got 10.
Yeah,
we've got the 10 decent people.
I guess that's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you have to look at it. I wouldn't like. I mean, we could put so much more effort into this, right? Like we could
Right.
do everything we could to like, like advertise ourselves and whatever, and make sure that we get the hits and the views. Like, and maybe we will when the show starts, and
Right.
Right. But the thing is, like, those people are like putting that shit out like right away.
Yeah.
I have a job. You have a job.
Right.
Like, we have lives. Like, we can't record like at the drop of a hat, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're in 2 different states.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's not like
2 different time zones.
Yeah. It's not easy to just sit down whenever
and be like, we're going to record something right now.
Right.
So I wouldn't get discouraged. Like, we're recording this for the people who, want to listen, who want to know about the history.
Yeah.
Right? Who want to know about the history, who maybe will reach out at some point and be like, hey, can you do a character profile on that guy from the bar who was sitting next to Pippin, and when Pippin was drunk and telling,
right,
everybody's business. And we'll be like, sure, we'll find the one page,
Yeah.
and then we'll make something up.
We'll do as much as possible on that guy.
We'll have like 2 lines written out, and then we'll somehow talk for like 2 hours about this. It's the weirdest thing. So yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I wouldn't try to, try not to let it affect you.
I mean, I like what you said with that, is like, I guess we know our crowd, because it's honestly, it's pretty consistent, our listeners right now.
Yep.
And that just means that they're okay with putting up with our shit.
Yep.
And they like the way that we present things, and that's good.
Yeah. I think there's more people out there who are excited about the show than are not excited about the show, right? It's just
right.
It's always the louder voice that gets heard over
right.
the crowd, right? And so,
well, and that's what I guess that's what I want to say to everybody too, is like, if you are excited about the show but you don't know much outside of like
the movies,
the movies, or like when you were 12 and you read The Hobbit, you know what I mean?
Or
like
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like if you don't know much outside of like the 1 or 2 times that maybe you read the book and that you watch the movie often, that's why we're here. Like, leading into this, that's why we do this. We talk about the more obscure stuff because it's fun and it's what we know, and it's and when we don't know it, we kind of like will pick a subject and then just dive as deep into that subject as we can.
One of the guys from the game that I play, we're chatting on Discord, and he's like, well, what's the name of your podcast? And so I gave him the name, and he listened to it because he wanted to. He's like, well, I want to hear you guys.
Okay.
And so he listened to it. He's like, you're really well spoken. I'm like, which one did you listen to? And it was the one that you and Ariel did.
Oh, that's
I'm like,
good.
well, that's Chris and his partner Ariel. It's like that wasn't mine. He's like, I'll give you one that you did. So I gave him one. I haven't
That's
heard
great.
from
I
him.
love that. That's fantastic. But I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Is
Hold on.
we
I'm gonna tell him right now that I just name dropped him.
just name dropped him on there.
I just name dropped him on the podcast.
But like that's the thing is like I want everybody to understand that like we do this for fun. But we do put effort into it. You know what I mean? It's not like we're just letting it we prepare as much as we prepare, right? And sometimes
we prepare like a person cramming for an exam in like
yeah,
5 minutes.
And sometimes when we prepare almost nothing, sometimes when I've got only like 2 lines on an outline, we'll still just sit here and talk because we know enough. And we want to be the people that you guys can come to, that you can ask questions to, whoever you are. And that's the other thing is, as much as I hate the terminology of the 2020s, I do understand, and it was something that Ariel like kind of brought up to me a little bit more, that fantasy for a lot of people is an escape and a safe place, right? And so I want you to be able to feel that here as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like to know that that we don't see it in one specific way. Now, the one thing that we do
like,
rag on a lot.
Here's to that point, right?
Yeah.
Let me just add this. Marvel comics, specifically the X-Men comics, are all about minorities.
Right. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point of the X-Men comics. You cannot tell me that the characters and what they go through and like the government like trying to systematically like monitor and tag them and regulate them is not something that happens in everyday life. And it's a way for people to go, I see myself in this character.
Right. I mean, Neil Gaiman says it really, really well when he talks about writing, is that he says, when you write fiction, as contradictory as this sounds, you are telling lies to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Like that's what fiction writing is. You're telling lies to tell the truth. So yeah, like it is. I understand. I think we understand that fantasy is a place that like people have escaped to, that they've seen themselves in, and that is what we want to continue.
Yeah.
Right. What we make fun of, and I'm not gonna like,
and that's why it's important. Like, and comics do a better job of it, right? Because just the nature of like a comic book, right?
Right.
Is it's open to be re-explored, reimagined, right? And it's just continual.
Right.
It's a good comic, right?
Right.
And it's important to see representation of your own people in literature like that, right?
Yes.
In fantasy, and especially in fantasy, right?
Right.
Because shit's tough. I don't do that though. Like,
right.
That's important for people, right?
Yes.
I don't like. I can read fantasy and
right. I think you and I have both talked about that too on this, is like neither of us have ever really used fantasy as an escape.
No.
I don't see that as a bad thing. I understand that life is shitty for a lot of people, and like fantasy can be a really good escape.
Reading is an escape in general, right?
Right.
Depends on what you read, right? If you read something about some fucking political thing, you know, right? One of, what's his names?
If it's just keeping you real in the world,
it's just like, I have to put this fucking book down because it's pissing me off so much.
Right.
Like, that's not really an escape in reading, right?
Right.
But, if you're reading Around the World in 80 Days,
yeah,
or you're reading, The Hobbit for the 1000th time, or what is it? A Prayer for Owen Meany, like all that stuff is, reading is an escape.
Right.
Just period.
Right.
Right. in your mind, as you're reading this story, you're building that world, and you are in that world at that time that you're reading the book.
Right.
Right. And so even if you're not like escaping and going, oh, I can see myself in that. And I don't think I've ever had a book or there's something like that where I've gone, oh, I can put myself in that.
Right. But it's entertainment, and you're seeing it, and and not just entertainment, but like I said, like you're telling lies to tell truth, right? And so even if you don't put yourself in that story, you can see what it means and what it's supposed to bring to humanity.
Yeah.
Right.
I think though, for everyone who's a fan of books like this, it is frightening when someone puts that to a visual medium, right? Because nothing is as good as it is in your mind, right? Nothing is ever as good as it is in your mind. And having someone else in control of that takes that away from you. And it doesn't, that's what I think is going on, right?
Right.
And it shouldn't, because I can go back in and read the book, and although right now, whenever I'm reading the book, I picture Elijah Wood and
right.
Sean Astin, and Ian McKellen as Gandalf.
Yeah. Ian McKellen will never not be Gandalf, to be honest. But one of the other things is, I think what happens a lot on these fandom websites, Reddit, YouTubes, all of these other things, is information gets regurgitated just over and over and over and over and over by different people, right? I want you, I want everybody who listens to us to know that, like, between Carlos and I, we'll do that sometimes. Like he'll send me something. I'll basically it's just you sending me something. I almost never send you anything. And so some of that information will be like regurgitated between us, but that's not what we want to do here. Because
I'm also not regurgitating everything I'm seeing. I'm regurgitating the things that it's like, oh, Chris would enjoy this.
Yes.
This is funny to me. Chris would find it funny as well.
Right. And like, and that's the thing, is like, it's not just saying like, so like saying regurgitation, what I mean by that is like everybody will, like, you'll just hear over and over and over again, I hope there's no nudity because there's none in the books. I hope there's no nudity because there's none in the books. I want it to stay true to the book. So I hope that there's no nudity. Right. So that's why I posted this week that part about Fingon and Baron with Sauron in the caves with the werewolves, because Sauron stripped them naked. Right. And then what you think, before he cast them into the dungeon, he gave them clothes again? Yeah. No, they were naked that whole time. Yeah. And so when Fingon incredibly violently murders a werewolf, badass move, he's butt naked while he's, so I'm just, I played this experiment with Ariel as I read that part to her. I just want you guys to like imagine that entire scene and that entire scenario in your mind as if it were cinematic. That's rated R. Like 100%, that's rated R. Like, because you've got a man, but an elf, right, who tears apart a werewolf with his bare hands and teeth. I don't even know what that looks like, honestly. I don't know what he's using his teeth for. But
little like Mike Tyson, probably.
Yeah, like, but he is using his bare hands and teeth to tear apart a werewolf butt naked. That's just like, if I'm imagining that, there's a decent amount of blood, like a lot
of man ass,
and at least man ass, right? You can do artistic shots that show just butt, but it's going to be at least that. Probably, unless
that is what you would see. You're not going to see a full dong,
unless you want to, unless, I mean, you want to take away from that moment. I feel like it takes away from that moment and do the Disney thing of like showing a shadow fight.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Which happens in like Disney shows.
Yeah.
That's, you see Tarzan, Clayton dies by hanging, but you don't actually see him hanging. You see him fall, and then lightning strikes, and you see a shadow of a guy hanging, right?
You don't even see the guy. You
No,
just
you
see
just see,
like his feet and
yeah,
his lower torso. So you don't even
right.
see like the fact that there's something strangling him by the
Yeah.
neck.
So
Which,
like,
actually, it's not strangling because
so
his neck probably snapped.
yes, you can go the Disney route, but in my imagination and my thoughts, staying true to that is staying true to the violence that exists in it.
Yeah.
Because
Second Age is super violent.
yeah, because
The
Tolkien did not steer away from violence.
Yeah, Dagger Bragollach.
Yeah. Well, that's all First Age, right?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. First Age is very, very violent though. The slaughter at Alqualande.
Yeah.
Like
all the kinslayings,
all of the kinslayings, right? It's a very, very violent time because Tolkien wrote in violence. No, he did not say and blood splattered and intestines were out. And
he didn't go the George R.R. Martin route.
No, but they were you don't have to. That's the point, right? If you're a good writer, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Because he puts a picture in your mind of like, this is a very scary and violent environment.
He's also writing it around the time when most people would have experienced it, especially in Europe, right? Violence, right? That kind of violence.
And like scary, bad violence.
Yeah.
War is not pretty.
Yeah.
Especially war when they're using bayonets.
London was being bombed.
Yeah.
Constantly during World War II.
Right.
Right. Europe was an entire, war front, right? It was a theater of war. People were more exposed to it. I think the people who would have been reading it would have known what that was like.
Well, yeah, possibly. They would have understood the gore and violence that goes along
without
with it.
having been told about the gore and violence, right? And that's the thing. Like I think that's, we don't see that, right?
What, like, that whole thing was just saying that we try not to simply regurgitate information on here. What I like to do, and I know what Carlos likes to do when it comes to book stuff, show stuff, we don't fucking know. So we're just talking out of our asses like everybody else, right? But when it comes to book things, we really do take something and try to get to the core of it. Because there is that information. It's easy to not simply regurgitate. It's not easy. It's tough because there's a lot of info there, right? But there are ways, if you want to take the time, or if you just want to listen to us because we take the time, then you don't have to simply regurgitate the information that you're constantly hearing over and over again, right? And I think that's kind of the big takeaway that I wanted from this, is this idea that I'm glad that you kind of helped me out with the thoughts of like, don't be too discouraged. We have good people listening to us, which is nice.
We have like 5 good people listening.
Yeah, we have at least 5. 7. I'm going to say 7 counting you and I.
Okay.
Yeah. 5 outside of us.
I mean, I listen only to go, God, man, I say right so many times.
I think we've been doing better because we both realized that.
We both do, but then I forget.
Yeah, well. Yeah. But like, that is kind of the big takeaway that I wanted to do on this random podcast, where I wanted to talk about, honestly, like real life things in our legendarium, in our fantasy legendarium. There is just a certain amount of real that I wanted to talk about because I honestly, legitimately have been discouraged over the past few days. I was so excited. I am. I'll use M. So excited about the show and about the posters that were dropped and about like everything that I saw in that. Literally everything that I saw in that, I thought looked so cool.
Can we just comment on that really quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
Our Farazan is one of those people.
You think so? The fully gold robe guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The one with like eight rings on his fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are saying like, oh, the one with the black is Sauron.
I don't think so.
I don't think it is.
No.
There are people who are saying, right, and this is kind of interesting. I read it. I was like, it's not really part of the story because he's dead. Is that it's ale because it's his like what's the meteorite material that
right? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And so that he's not dead, right? He's still alive somehow. I don't know, right? People come back from the dead in comic books all the time, right? So what's who's to say that he's not fucking Glorfindel?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, people come back from the dead in the Lord of the Rings,
so
right?
That is kind of interesting because I really hope that they don't do Sauron because other people no, it's Sauron. I really hope that it's not Sauron and that they pull away from Sauron as Morgoth. Right? I really don't want to see Sauron as Morgoth.
And hey, maybe they actually did get some of the rights, and maybe that hand holding a flower is Yavanna, and maybe that fucking is Morgoth. And they can do some flashback stuff.
Although Morgoth he wouldn't have a sword.
He would have Grond.
He would have
his hammer.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we're ever told.
I do want to hold. You keep talking. I'm gonna find something.
All right, but so I'm actually what I was most excited is seeing the two trees dagger being held by what I think looks like a woman in armor, and I am almost positive that's Galadriel. And if it is, I will be stoked. If we see like battle Galadriel, I'm all about that shit.
Yeah.
Like that would be awesome because one, that dagger looks amazing. That Telperion and Lorelin dagger looks super cool.
Well, someone's saying that there's other people talking about how it's like Celebrimbor's in there.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't think that that's going to be him though. No. I do think that we got quite a few hobbits.
Yeah.
When you see things like fruit and acorns and stuff like that, you just kind of automatically think Hobbit.
I can't find it. There was a photo of Sauron, and he had like armor, like dark armor, but it wasn't like Morgoth. It wasn't like a full-on like face visor.
Oh, okay.
He just had like a dark crown and stuff. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but yeah, I'm still super stoked on the show.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't really care what other people have to say about it.
So that's the thing is like I am excited. I decided to look at comments and look at other YouTube channels and what people are saying, and that discouraged me.
Yeah.
And so I don't mean to. I feel like the beginning of this may have worried some people that I was thinking of not doing this podcast anymore. That's not what that was.
I thought you were firing me. I'm gonna have this conversation with you before I have the real podcast with Jeff. I just need your Zoom account. So
it's just like I guess that's the other thing too, is like I do want to say thank you to all the listeners. Like to all of you guys that do listen, that means to me that, look, even if you don't think of these things exactly the same way that we do, you at least put up with our shit. Right.
One last thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Poster on the poster with the sword hilt that has,
the broken sword.
No, not this broken sword. It might not be. It might not even be a sword hilt. But
okay.
It's like a staff and it's got a city on top.
Oh yeah.
Gondolin.
I think that's Gondolin.
Yeah. And some guy did like an analysis, like he did a picture of like what Gondolin looks like, and then and he did like points on the orb or scepter or whatever it is.
Right.
And then on the picture, and it
matches almost exactly.
It matches exactly, not almost exactly.
Well, because like that's
just
the thing.
From a different perspective.
It doesn't have to be like because I saw people saying like, oh well, no, Gondolin falls before that. I'm like, so we have a ton of stuff out of Gondolin.
Yeah,
like that's where Orcris comes from. That's where Yeah, Glamdring comes. That's where I like to believe Sting came from.
Yeah.
Was Gondolin, right?
Yeah, if it was with the other two.
Right. Well, and it glows blue.
Yeah.
Which was a very Gondolin thing.
Yeah.
And so like we have plenty of stuff out of Gondolin, so why wouldn't that be, that could have transferred out of Gondolin as well. Yeah, that I actually, the one thing too though, because you were talking about Eöl, I almost think like if Eöl got brought back, I would rather him being the guy that has the broken black sword, because I went searching after I saw that picture, and they buried Turin's broken sword with him. So that sword is buried with him in canon, right? But that doesn't mean that it wasn't taken out.
Maybe we can't be turned into flashback.
Right. And the other thing too is that there was a sister sword, and that one we don't know what happened to. We have no idea what happened to that sword. All we know is that it was so the sword that was given to Turin was given to Thingol by Eöl, right? That's the broken sword that's buried with Turin. The other one that Eöl kept, Maglin stole it when he went to Gondolin, which means that sword is in Gondolin, or was in Gondolin.
Are we gonna have like a dark saber type thing with that sword?
I don't know. That'd be super cool.
That'd be cool.
So anyway, I thought that was like, it's kind of fun to talk about these now because I kind of got the heavy stuff out of the way. But I do love, I love that there are images on there of like what could be. I mean, this is way before, so I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. What could be a starry. Now, I say way before, but really we don't know because it only talks about the one time they were sent. There were tons of Maya that went to and from Middle Earth, like from Middle Earth to help me, Valinor, and back and forth, right? That happened a lot. So what's to say that the Astari weren't sent before that as well, before the big bringing about of Sauron and everything, right? So there are some that could look like Astari. There are some
we got 7 months.
Yeah, there are some that like definitely looks like the precursor men of the Rohirrim, because the Rohirrim, as far as we know, wasn't around yet. But there were plenty of people that lived there that were the exact same people and the descendants of Rohan, right?
Proto Rohirrim.
Yeah, just because the nation didn't exist. Hey, buddy, just because that nation didn't exist yet doesn't mean that those people didn't exist. Right. And that sword is sick. That horse sword is super cool. I love it. All right, buddy. I know I'm wrapping up right now. Anyway, I do want to thank like all of our listeners, all of our subscribers, and the people who talk to us. I don't know if you saw Marley's comment about my naked but seeing some elf ass and stuff like that, which I like. It's great. That means that the people that listen to us hold our same sense of humors, right? Yeah. But I want to thank everybody for that. And you, Carlos, for still doing this with me, and like you said, doing this whether people are listening or not. You're still down with wanting to do it because it's fun for you and I to just sit here and talk bullshit about the Tolkien Legendarium.
I would do this on my own time. I have done it. I saw the post. It's a nice way to kind of get some of that stuff out to other people too, to 5 other people.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is like we know that there are people. But it was
nice to be able to like that morning where I couldn't sleep and I woke up and I was on Reddit and I saw that post. I was like, oh,
let's talk about this.
Let's talk about this. And it was I thought it was a good comment up until I did have to edit it.
Okay.
Because it was 5 a.m. and I had misspelled Aragon everywhere.
Oh no.
And I say it Aragon, right? And it's Aragorn, right?
Aragorn, right?
And I think we all say Aragon, right?
Right.
And I had misspelled it everywhere, and someone's like Aragon, but really good post. I was like, God damn it. I'm like, it was 5 a.m. So
That's great.
Which is weird because I do have an autocorrect for Aragorn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that is weird then.
And so it didn't catch it, which is anyways.
But, you know, I'm glad that we're doing this. We're going to be doing it more, whether you guys are listening to us or not. Once that show comes out, we've got a bunch coming your way. So it should be fun. I am less discouraged come the end of this conversation, which is nice. But I love the fact that like Sam sent us a picture of him punching his swole card, and we were able to post that on
that was cool
on the Instagram. And like, I love that we're getting more interaction. And like I said, this means that you guys tolerate us, if nothing else, which is great. I'm perfectly happy being simply tolerated. I'll actually post one of those workouts today. You want me to post Sauron or Legolas?
Post Legolas. I don't know if we're gonna get to Sauron. I could probably do Sauron, but Melissa doesn't have the weights for it.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right. Okay.
Like, you can do 35. She's like, no, I'm not doing 35-pound devil presses.
All right. So what I want to know, just kind of finishing up, because this has been a very different style of podcast today, right? Mm-hmm. But finishing up just like normal, just wanted to know if you had any like closing words, anything else you wanted to say about kind of, whatever, honestly.
Just the ending.
Yeah. You want to say the ending? You want me to say it?
No, you say the ending.
All right, guys. So if you're watching us on YouTube, keep us there. You know, you can comment, like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. If you're listening to us, or if you want to listen to us, we are on iTunes. We're on any podcast forum, right? Even though we joke about taking ourselves off of Spotify. And so, you know, listen to us wherever you listen to us. If you want to see our faces, you can hop on YouTube. We're on there. Thank you for anybody who is on Patreon and supporting us there. We do all of our fun stuff where we put on our Circle of Doom episodes. There's 4 of them on there where we just talk bullshit, honestly. A lot of our show stuff is Circle of Doom stuff that we've talked about so far. So you can check us out on Patreon. You can throw us anywhere from $3 to $20 a month. And you get outlines and early episodes.
I'm kind of glad no one's done the $20 a month thing.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like I would have to do way more for that. Yeah, once somebody actually signs up for that, it's like shit. Okay, we got to get on it. And comment on.
Can I give you a refund?
Comment on Instagram, guys. We are at _Swollhirrim. Workouts are on Instagram. Send us your workout video. Send us showing that you're punching your swole card, and we'll throw it on. That's what we did with Sam. We'll do that with anybody who throws something our way, and just tag us in whatever video, story, post, all of that jazz. But yeah, that is what I have been feeling over the past week, and kind of what I wanted to talk about, and a little bit of talk on new show news, right? So don't want to leave that out, but yeah.
Hi.